Hello, I am Paul Harris, America's editor at Mining Journal, and welcome to this Mining Journal exclusive interview with Phillips Baker, President and CEO of Hecla Mining. Good morning, Phillips.
Hi there, Paul.
Hi there. Hecla Mining is a turnaround story, with the company having progressed a long way since the dark days of 2019, when cash, liquidity and working capital were mere veneers on your balance sheet. Now, with a growing cash position and working capital position, the company is in a much healthier position all round. To what do you attribute the turnaround?
Well, first of all, it's not a turnaround, Paul, because the perception that you've described was not the reality of 2019. So it's an interesting view that you've presented. 2019 was a year that, yes, we had to make some adjustments, but it was far from a turnaround. We had our key asset, Greens Creek, operating at a tremendous pace, which we've seen continue in 2020. The second half of 2019, we generated roughly 60 million of free cash flow. So that was before you saw prices rise in 2020. So let me just start with that. 2020 has been a great year for us, notwithstanding the pandemic. We've been able to keep our operations almost fully operational, with the exception of about a month in Quebec when we were required to shut down due to the pandemic, and a little longer in Mexico. But otherwise, we were fully operational, and in fact, we ended up in 2020 exceeding our silver production guidance by 1.4 million ounces. So about a 10-15% increase over what our guidance was at the beginning of the year, pre-pandemic.
Okay, well, maybe I sort of got the phrasing wrong. The operations themselves weren't a turnaround, but from a balance sheet, the company financials.
The balance sheet was fine. The balance sheet was fine, Paul. The issue we had was we needed to do a refinancing of our bonds, and the question was, when do we do that? And we were very aware of the issues that were happening in China. And when the U.S. shut the border with China in January of 2020, we said we need to go now and refinance these bonds rather than wait, because of the we didn't know what the impact was going to be, but we knew that it would have some impact on the credit market. So we were very, very rapid at moving forward with that refinancing. So we did that, took the debt out to 2028. We lowered the debt slightly. We think being in the bond market is a good thing for a company like Hecla to be in, and so we're glad to be able to do that refinancing.
Okay, thank you. So in addition to beating your silver guidance, what would you say were the other highlights of 2020 for you?
Well, I think that's the primary thing, is beating the silver guidance. And what caused that, what allowed us to do that, was having the Lucky Friday go back into full production. For a period of 3 years, we had a strike that occurred at that operation, and it was unfortunate that there was that strike, but there was a fundamental difference in the view of how you operate the mine. The workforce, the union workforce at that time thought that they should be able to control the mine, and they had been in that position for a number of years. And we said it was untenable for us to be able to operate that mine safely without having the ability to tell people where they go work, who they work with, controlling that workflow within the mine. What ends up happening if you don't have control over the mine, you end up having one area get ahead of another, and it creates seismic tension within the mine. So we were adamant that we had to change the work rules within the mine, and so we stuck to our guns, and eventually the union came around, and we went back to full production. And that took about a year to ramp up. And we got that ramp up done in the fourth quarter. The mine produced about 800,000 ounces in the fourth quarter, 2 million ounces for the year. Huge change for us to go from the Lucky Friday consuming cash to the Lucky Friday generating cash.
I imagine. You're also looking at expanding production at Casa Berardi in Quebec in Canada. What's the plan there?
Well, Casa Berardi is a mine that we've owned since 2013. And it's a mine that when we arrived, it was simply an underground mine. We produced, mined about 2,000 tons per day. We now have that mine operating with both an underground and a surface operation at around 4,000 tons per day. So the key there is to have that mill that was able to, basically operate at half capacity to operate at full capacity with consistency. And that's been the challenge that we've had over the last couple of years, is getting that consistency. So what 2020 was, and it was a difficult thing to do in the pandemic because we couldn't cross the border as readily as you normally do to bring in expertise. But our challenge was to get this mine into this consistent operation. And we really are starting to see that in the fourth quarter of 2020. We've had those 3 months, the last 3 months, we've seen the best throughputs through that mill in our time at being at Casa Berardi. So what I would anticipate is in 2021 is more of that sort of success, and the focus in 2021 is on really driving the underground, where we can get more production out of the underground because it's higher grade. So we're improving. We've done about 10% improvement so far of the availability of the workforce working time at the face. That might not sound like much, but it makes a huge incremental difference in the tons that come from the underground. So that's the real drivers, improving the efficiency of the assets that we have there. We're not in a position where we're having to make large capital investments in the mine. It's really using what we have better.
Okay, thank you. The company has also got other growth projects such as San Sebastian in Mexico, and of course in Nevada in the United States. What are your plans there? What sort of capital do you anticipate deploying to continue to grow the business?
Well, the growth, first of all, comes from Greens Creek, the Lucky Friday, and Casa Berardi. So that's where the real focus is. We've got the capital investment in those places, and we have readily available growth that we can generate. Lucky Friday being the biggest growth driver. Realize that the Lucky Friday produced 600,000 ounces in 2019, 2 million ounces in 2020. This year we'll produce roughly 3.5 million ounces. So that's another 75% increase in the ounce production from last year. But by 2023, so in 2 more years, it will produce 5 million ounces of silver. And all of that incremental increase in ounce production will go to the bottom line with cash flow generation. So those are the real drivers. Nevada, San Sebastian, the focus there is really on exploration. Both of those places, we see huge opportunities, and we tried to highlight that in our year-end release. Huge opportunities to have exploration success, which we think is necessary for us to be able to generate the sort of returns. In Nevada, at Fire Creek, we could operate that mine producing material that we run through someone else's mill, but we don't think that's going to generate the sort of returns that putting the exploration dollars in to find material that will go into our mill will provide. So that's the focus there. Mexico, the focus is on the El Bronco and the El Tigre veins, where we're finding not just grade, but big widths there's a lot going on at both of those operations.
Okay, with the silver price pushing ever higher, it's obviously a great time to be expanding output at Lucky Friday and the other silver operations. Hecla is the largest silver producer in the USA, and you also generate a significant amount of revenue from gold. Although the silver margins are much better than on the gold business, I understand.
Yep,
Yeah,
that's right. Yep, that's right.
How important is it for Hecla to sort of remain a silver producer in the minds of the investors, or is it just a case of, you know, you're going to produce whatever metal is the most profitable metal, and whether you're a silver company or a gold company, it doesn't really matter now?
Well, I think we have been a silver company for 130 years. This, in fact, is our 130th anniversary this year. So we've been a silver company for that length of time. So we are in the minds of investors, silver companies. You know, when you had the Reddit move in silver a few weeks back, it was interesting. I was not anticipating that Hecla would be the best performer of all the silver miners. We were up as a percentage, not quite 50 to 75% more than any other silver producer. And we traded that day 61 million shares. We typically trade about 8 to 10 million shares. What really stood out from that is the brand value that Hecla has as this silver producer. So we are a silver producer. We'll continue to be a silver producer. It's our largest source of resource. If you look at our resource base, it's silver dominated, but we'll also produce gold. And why do we do that? Because there's going to be times when gold, the economics of gold are better than the economics of silver. At least certainly in the past, we've seen that. Whether that's going to be true in the future remains to be seen, but in the past, it's been true. And it has supplemented what we've been able to do as a silver producer. So we are prepared to invest in gold. It allows us to be a larger company so that we can take on bigger silver assets. But we are a silver company.
So 61 million shares with the Reddit phenomenon, that's pretty amazing. And the silver price around $30. Why do you think silver's so buoyant at the moment?
Well, there's a lot of reasons, but the thing that the market needs to start to realize is that in sort of the 5,000-year history of silver, we have never been in a place that we're in today. For the first 4,800 years, silver has been a monetary asset. That's really been its primary and key use. You've not had other uses for it. Then over the course of the last 200 years, you started to get use of silver in other things, primarily photography. When I got into the business 30 plus years ago, half of all of the demand for silver was photographic demand. And it was the market at that point was 500 million ounces. The market today is 1 billion ounces. And 60% of that is in applications that did not exist 50 years ago. These applications are key critical applications for the mobility of our society. So us having this conversation, we're able to do it because there's silver that's in all of the different components. But maybe more importantly, and why it's such an exciting time, is it is a key component in the decarbonization of our economy. And so what is happening is silver is growth in the use in photovoltaics and the use in electronic vehicles is huge. And when you look at this demand, the current demand is about 1 billion ounces of silver, 600 million in this industrial use. You can see over the course of the next 15, 20 years, it growing to 1 billion for just industrial use. What does that mean? That means silver is in a place that it's never been in before. When people look at the gold-silver ratio, they look at it from a monetary standpoint. Well, that ratio, I think, is going to get compressed dramatically as this industrial use for silver grows even more rapidly.
Excellent. So a similar thing as copper is experiencing at the moment. You've
That's
got that
exactly right.
decarbonization and
Yeah.
yeah.
So that's why, our asset in Montana that has that's is the third largest undeveloped copper asset in the United States, and also has 500 million ounces of silver. Why that's so attractive? Why we think that will, as we go through the further permitting process, will move forward so rapidly, because the U.S. needs this metal. I mean, that's the other element of it. Is one of the things this pandemic has done is caused the world to realize that the supply chain is absolutely critical, and you cannot be reliant, and we've known this in the past, but it's something that we've forgotten, that you cannot be reliant upon your critical minerals coming from other countries or countries that you don't have the best relationship with. So just a unique time for silver.
President Biden, he's very keen on advancing the decarbonization agenda, right. And obviously critical metals such as copper and silver are part of that. So do you expect to see the Biden administration being supportive of the mining of those metals in the United States?
Look, they're going to try to be. They're going to have, they're going to have a lot of tension within the administration, because you have some people that just don't want development really of any sort, and they're going to have to deal with that. But I think if you look on balance at the Democratic administrations over the course of the last 20 years, they have been more supportive than people realize. That's why Hecla has been successful at being a U.S. producer for all these years. So now the future looks really bright for mining in the United States of particular minerals. Certain things, coal is the outlook is not as bright for that, obviously, but it is very bright for things like copper, things like silver.
Okay, with Lucky Friday and Greens Creek, I mean, they're obviously two world-class assets, but they're, in terms of the availability of other silver projects around the world, there isn't that great a number of projects out there. So looking further ahead into the future, is it going to be more difficult to maintain Hecla as that silver company?
No, I don't. Look, we've got in our own pipeline lots of assets, some of which are silver assets. And I'll mention just one in particular, and that's the Montana assets that we have, Rock Creek and Montanore. Those are together about 500 million ounces of silver and 3 billion pounds of copper. These are assets that have been in the permitting process for some time. We think we're at the final stages of that process. We think on the Montanore side of the two properties that we have, we think that we'll get the final supplemental record of decision, and that will allow us to start to dewater a decline that has been previously driven. We'll dewater it. We'll then run an incline underneath or on top of the ore body, and do the drilling necessary to get the next phase of permitting and to do the mine planning. So, anticipate by the end of the year that we're dewatering there. Anticipate that in 2022 we're actually breaking rock to do the work necessary to advance it.
Okay.
So that's huge. You think about those. The total reserve of Hecla is 188 million ounces. That's the current reserve. So this, if you can go in, you can do the close space drilling, you can convert, almost 2.5 times what we have as reserves today. So big change for us.
Definitely. That sounds very exciting. And so I guess that's one of the key things you're looking out for this year. But what are your other main goals for this year for Hecla, and what would constitute a successful year for the company?
Well, look, the key goal for Hecla is to drive value at those three key operations. It's the capital intensity is very, very low with the investment that we can make in those properties and the improved productivity that we can make in those properties. So it's very, very simple, improve blocking and tackling. It's not anything that is a high risk proposition. You look at the capital investment that we'll make in 2021, it's a little more than $100 million. That's on a company whose all-in sustaining costs for silver is somewhere around $15 and for gold is somewhere around $1,200. So you take those two things and you think about where the gold and silver price are, you look at the free cash flow generation that we have. So we'll do that. We'll increase our exploration expenditures. It'll be about double what we had in 2020. That exploration expenditures are going to be about a quarter of the total is going to be in Nevada, where we see the opportunity for very high grade discoveries. And we've announced at Midas we've already identified a new discovery at Midas. It's going to be about 15% of the total is going to be spent in Mexico, where we've announced what we've seen at El Bronco and El Tigre. And both of those things, if we have success in exploration there, both of those can go into production very, very rapidly. So, and then you have exploration across the portfolio. So when I look at a successful year, it's putting more productivity into these mines, generating more free cash flow to put more cash on the balance sheet, to put more money into our exploration programs, and have a growing reserve resource base. Very simple things, not complicated. We don't have issues like a strike that we had to deal with in the past.
Okay, well, I wish you a very successful 2021 and look forward to catching up with you again in the future to talk about some of these developments as they progress. Unfortunately, that's all we have time for today. And so I'd like to thank Phillips Baker for joining us, and goodbye from me, Paul Harris, and stay tuned for more Mining Journal interviews.
Okay, thanks, Paul.
Thank you.